Raider Rock just ascending those top ropes like he was born up there, telling his opponent. It's a very unorthodox style by Raider Rock. Why not?
Stop. What?
That was about 50 different things in once there right now. He's going to be a power wrestler.
Oh, did you see he kind of got like kicked
We
there?
call that a little blowback.
Yeah, that was on the gun there.
Yeah. Sometimes you hit a guy so hard his foot comes and hits you back in the face. Dynamite. Still wearing the belt.
Is he really?
Yeah, sure. He's still wearing the belt. I wonder if he's got the Bluetooth on. That's my favorite Dynamite feature.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
Look at this. He's just letting the American Idiot make the tag. Here comes Dynamite. Still wearing the belt. Okay, now the belt is off.
Oh, a lot of respect for that belt, just heaving it to the outside.
Look at me! Look at me! Do I look like I'm $5? No, I'm not $5, Jake. What I am, I'm at least $7.50. You hear me? $7.50. $7.50 worth of the best wrestler you've ever seen. And tonight, I'm gonna prove it.
Now, Wolfman, listen up, you ugly, no-good chump. You don't know the freight train, Wolfman. I'll take you out in a minute like they did on American Werewolf, that movie to be coming on TV like American Werewolf, and the wolf be acting like they're be looking red like they're and I'm going to knock that red off your face tonight, Wolfman, if you face the $5 Wrestling Heavyweight Champion Freight Train.
Fans, when
train.
$5 Wrestling comes to your town, this is what you can see. It's sweeping the nation, $5 fever, but more importantly, Freight Train fever.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Go to WrestlingRoundtable.com and you can get the links to all our sites: YouTube, Blog Talk Radio, Go Fight Live. We have 2 Facebook pages, Twitter. We're also on iTunes. So you can get the links to all that on WrestlingRoundtable.com. We're going to move on now to Brock Lesnar, as I mentioned before we went to break. Brock Lesnar was a really interesting story in pro wrestling. First of all, he got signed right out of college, NCAA champion. He got signed to a huge developmental deal. I don't think that ever happened before or since, but it was $200,000. It was to keep him away from WCW, no less. Could you imagine anybody being signed for that much to keep him away from TNA? Wouldn't happen. But of course, after a year or two in developmental, he teamed with Shelton Benjamin, Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and then he was put on TV the day after WrestleMania 18 with Paul Heyman and was pushed to the moon. Yep. King of the Ring, WWE Champion, beating huge names, and then a couple years later, he had enough of that shit. He wanted to do something more legit. Of course, we know he dabbled in football and then decided not to, but he also went over to Japan, where he wrestled for New Japan while he was trying to get out of this big contract that he had with WWE for a lot of time. And of course, WWE wanted a return on their investment, so they were fighting that as much as they could. The lawsuit eventually ended. Brock Lesnar ended up in IGF for a cup of coffee. He had his last match against Kurt Angle, I believe, and then he moved on to mixed martial arts. So even though he was only in pro wrestling for a few years, I really feel if he had stuck with it, he would have been one of the all-time greats. Right. This guy had everything. It's not even just that he had a different variety of styles, the strength, the agility, even the high flying. Yeah. WrestleMania 19 not included, but when he hit it, it looked great. Cool. If you saw any of his OVW or dark match stuff, you know what I mean. So this guy was the really complete total package. He really was so good, so quick too. He really could have been an all-time great, but even though he was only there for a couple years, made an impact. Right. So what was your first impression of Brock Lesnar when he debuted on TV and then segued into his first feud with the Hardys?
Holy shit. Literally what went through my head when I saw it was like, who is that? Oh my God. Just powerbombing everybody, making Spike Dudley, like throwing him around like, oh my God. It's just like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was amazing. And you're surprised that he didn't debut any sooner than WrestleMania 18. Yeah. It was the day after WrestleMania 18.
Well, the day after is a big show for
Yeah,
them.
it's a big show, but that's the right show to do it. And then Paul Heyman coming out of nowhere with him made it even more special because, of course, he's the mouthpiece for Brock Lesnar. Yes. And that's always good for a giant guy like that, just to go out there and destroy people, and you have your mouthpiece with you. A combination of those two guys is amazing. I was shocked, and I was like, wow, that guy is humongous.
I thought it was a breath of fresh air to have a great big monster heel. I don't think we've seen a big monster heel like that since probably Vader in WCW, who was that believable.
Plus, he had legit credibility.
Right.
He was a legit badass. He was an NCAA champion, and the way he moved in the ring, his strength, his power. And again, he had Paul Heyman as his manager, so you can't go wrong with that.
Well, we mentioned the high-flying moves and being put with the Hardys.
Right.
It's almost the opposite of when Sean O'Hare was put on TV. It was him and Jindrak against Juventud and Ray. And as opposed to WWE, where they like to ground the big guys, they put them against these cruiserweights, and they were high-flying as much as they were. So you'd think maybe they could have done that with the Hardys since that was his first feud, but they didn't.
No.
So do you think in retrospect that it was wise for them to edit out all those high-flying
Yes.
moves he did?
Yes, most definitely. If you have a monster heel, you want him to fight as a big man. You don't want him to do the moves that everybody else does, because then it makes him seem like everybody else.
Right.
So I thought it was perfect that.
But everybody
I thought-
else isn't a 300-pound guy who could
yeah,
do that
but
sort of
still,
stuff.
like, I remember when I was watching WCW and I saw the Giant do a drop kick. I thought it was a big deal. If I would have saw the Giant do
It was a
drop
big deal.
Yeah, but if he did a drop kick in every single match, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying do it every single match, but here and there at least.
You should have saved it for special occasion. Like if
Right.
you would have nailed,
Yeah.
if you would have hit it
Yes.
at WrestleMania 19 against
Yeah.
Kurt Angle,
Yeah.
that would have been probably the greatest moment of WrestleMania
Yes.
history.
Yeah.
And it would have been the greatest ending in a
been the
match.
big highlight.
Seriously.
I think that the fact that he came out and did 3 power bombs and he did them with basically
Say it,
just
don't
his
spray
strength.
it.
Seriously.
Thank you. He did those 3 power bombs, and he did it all himself. He didn't need like someone to grab him and lift him up, like
yeah.
Jericho kind of does when he used to do it. He just did it with his raw power. I mean, this is just a guy that could destroy people. The high flying, yeah, save it for a special time when he's going to be doing something like that. And then the
Like a
F5,
Goldberg match.
like, yeah, like well, I don't want to get into that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was
Well,
there.
what I mean is, if
Right.
they can do it, why restrict them?
Right.
I know why they do it, because that's...
also, it's like why remember like, we used to talk about Shawn Michaels told Ahmed Johnson, don't keep jumping over the top rope because if you do it before I do it, no one cares when I do it.
tough shit, Sean.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
I
Lawrence
understand
said to that,
But I'm
survival
saying-
of the fittest.
Exactly, but if you're having Brock Lesnar time, he was only a mid-card guy when he first got there. If you're doing that, like who gives a shit when the guy in the main event's doing it?
Well, maybe he should be in the main event.
He was. Eventually,
That's
he
what
got
I mean.
there
Like,
fast
if
enough.
the guy can do it and get a reaction for it, why hold him back?
Right.
But that's just how I feel about it. I understand the reasoning, politics. But we mentioned Paul Heyman.
Right.
This was the first time he managed someone in WWE. And he had been a good manager in WCW, and he was the mouthpiece, as was mentioned. Did Brock need it? I know people liked it, but do you think that he could have gotten by in and of himself?
I don't think so. We stress for managers today and how that someone needs a mouthpiece. Brock not talking, it adds a mystique to
Yes,
that person
definitely.
of why he's just going out there destroying people, and Heyman's just being the mouthpiece for him. And I loved it.
Okay, well, what was your reaction after the couple years that he was on TV when Brock left? I know because I was at WrestleMania 20 that the fans hated
there,
him,
yeah.
and I didn't agree with them at all. So how'd you feel?
Well,
about
I
it?
mean, being there, I was rooting for Goldberg only because of him leaving. It was just a sudden...
Goldberg was leaving too.
Well, here's why. His contract was ending.
Right.
There's a difference between a contract ending and when a guy just doesn't want to do it
Right.
anymore. So Goldberg's doing it because he's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But Brock is like, I'm done with wrestling. So it's kind of like a smack in the face to the fans who paid to see this match, because then the match didn't become irrelevant anymore because both guys were leaving. If Goldberg was leaving by himself, Brock Lesnar would have been cheered the whole time. But the moment he went out on a press conference and decided, hey,
It was on a radio show.
radio
but
show, whatever.
The word was out about a week before.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, that could be a huge moment. If it's going to be his last match and Goldberg's last match, that could potentially make the match huge. They didn't perform like it could have been.
And then he
but,
flipped the
you know,
audience on top
No,
of it.
but I felt like Brock Lesnar wasn't even giving his all.
Oh, he
those last-
wasn't, clearly.
No, it
The
definitely
last,
was not.
probably from summer of 03 until that WrestleMania. He wasn't giving his all. You could tell he had too much too soon. That's what I think happened with him.
Well, I just feel like if someone wants to do something else with their life, I don't think they're obligated to entertain you like The Rock. People complain about him going off to Hollywood. If Brock wants to do something else with his career while he's young, let him. It's
so much
his
more
life.
money, too.
I didn't hold it against him, but regardless of how people felt at the time, it seems like they would welcome him back with open arms. So if he did come back, which everyone expects, the moment he lost to Overeem, like a second later, WWE. So if he did come back, who would you want to see him go against?
Cena.
Now.
Because they had one on Backlash, which I thought was good because Cena
it
was
was a
still
good
kind of
match.
building. And now it's like Cena and him match almost. It's like these guys are going to be on the same level.
Big Show. They had such a great feud.
Again?
Yeah, but
You know?
it's also been like, how many years since? I mean, sometimes when you come back to a feud, it's better. Like, Shawn Michaels Undertaker. They wait a couple years to go back to it. It's awesome.
Brock is now a special attraction in my eyes. I think now it can't be put with just like anybody regular because
Yeah.
basically, if you look at him against CM Punk, come on, Lesnar's gonna kill him.
John Cena, because I think it'd be perfect. Cena's the top guy, and I think they match up perfectly,
Right.
especially now Cena's a much better wrestler than he was in 03.
Right. Now he's the guy.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the main eventer.
Right.
So it would be good to see him match up with him now.
Right.
But if not Cena, I'd love to see him F5 Khali. But
Undertaker,
that
though,
would be-
they do have a kind of real life feud. Remember, like the whole like, you want to do it?
You wanna do it?
You
That's,
wanna do it?
that would be someone that might even end the streak if that happened, because Lesnar's age compared to Undertaker's age.
well, when he
reality.
F5 Big Show, that's what I
Right.
think of.
Yeah.
Because
that
I'm
was
saying
something.
he F5 Khali, he was F5ing everybody.
Yeah.
But when he did it to Big Show, that was the
Yeah,
whole.
I was there.
shit
I was
moment.
there for that one.
Well,
and
that
I
was one
saw
of my
that.
favorite moments at
Yes.
Survivor Series 02. Was that
Yeah.
one of your favorite Brock Lesnar
Absolutely,
moments?
because I was there for that, and that's why I loved it so much. I could not believe he lifted that guy up. At the time, Big Show was heavier too. Whew.
Jumping off the forklift onto Big Show during Judgment Day, holy shit. He had like no running start and cleared like 12, 13 feet.
You know how much muscle? It's like when you see a lion who's hundreds of pounds jump up in the air with such grace. That's muscle.
Right,
Imagine how much
yeah.
muscle this guy had to spring himself that
Holy
distance.
crap.
The original ring break, the superplex
Oh,
with
yeah.
Brock Lesnar and the Big Show. I mean, they redid it pretty well with Big Show, Mark Henry, but nothing beats the original.
You know why though? Because they ended the show with that.
Yes.
They left it with a holy
then on
shit moment.
SmackDown,
They didn't have
on
another
top of
match
it.
after the fact.
And the referee totally sold the whole thing perfectly,
on
jumping up
his
and
ass.
down. Yeah.
They didn't even do it on a pay-per-view. They did it on a SmackDown to end the show. I mean, that was just like, how rare is to see a special moment like that in history?
Brock was such a terrible face, I thought. He was a great
Yeah.
heel,
Yes.
and he had so many great heel moments, one of which was you already have a guy who's missing a leg. So he's already at a disadvantage. And then Brock's being a bully to him, F5ing his good leg through the post, and then
Yeah.
pushing him from a wheelchair down the stairs
Yeah.
backstage. That was like, oh my God, how much of a villain can he
Yeah.
be? But I also loved when he finally beat The Undertaker at Hell in a Cell, No Mercy
Right,
in
yeah,
2002,
good match, too.
and posed with the belt
Yeah.
on top of the
Top of the
cage.
cell, yes.
This guy's the fucking champ now. So I'm a Brock fan, so I'm glad to see from the month before when there was no finish Undertaker, they finally got a win clean. But that was a great match too, the Hell in a Cell match. What was your favorite Brock Lesnar match?
That was my
Yeah?
pick. That was my pick. Especially even though it was such a small moment in the match. But probably had the stairs, launches them, and they go over the ring and into the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, I probably wouldn't be able to like like pick it up.
I mean, I think just because the whole show was great, I think SummerSlam with The Rock was one of my favorite ones of all time.
That's one of my favorite matches
favorite
of all time.
SummerSlam
Yeah.
of all time.
Oh, yeah,
One of-
definitely.
I think that was like, other than 91, that was probably one of my favorites.
What a
because-
classic.
What a classic that was, and the fact that the crowd was already starting to
Sure, yeah,
understanding
turning.
that Rock's going and that Brock is going to be the guy. It's the passing of the torch moment in a
It
way.
was, yeah.
It really was, seeing Brock go out and then the fans embracing him,
Mm-hmm.
giving him that face. He basically became a face that night.
The counters and transitions in
Right.
that match were perfect,
Right.
and it put Brock over. He
Right.
got the torch, and even before that, now that Rock and Hogan were friends now, and Brock destroys Hogan on SmackDown,
Right.
just
His blood on
ending.
his
Yeah,
chest.
that
Oh,
was a great
awesome.
moment too.
I got to go with Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle Iron Man match on SmackDown.
September 2003. It was.
Yes, it was the smartest Iron Man match I've ever seen, simply because in the beginning of the match, Brock Lesnar beats the shit out of Kurt Angle with a steel chair, and I was like, that's perfect. I mean, because the worst that could happen is, okay, you get disqualified, but then you got your man beat for the rest
Right.
of the match.
Right.
And he can get more falls
Yes,
back.
exactly. I
That
thought
was
that was the
brilliant.
smartest Iron Man match I've ever seen, and he wound up winning also.
Towards the end of his run, he had two matches that were great against Mexicans, or Mexican Americans. They were born in
Oh,
America, excuse
okay.
me. But Rey Mysterio on SmackDown and Eddie Guerrero, when he won the title, Goldberg was interfering, but you don't remember that so much because the moment was for Eddie.
Yeah.
But it was a great match, and those two in particular really showed to me how he can work with a variety of opponents. Granted, most of the guys, maybe not in WWE world, but most of the guys that he's going to be working with are smaller than he is. But those matches told good stories. It wasn't squashes.
Right.
So it really showed that Brock could tell good stories, like the Rock match too.
Right.
But now we're going to move on to what he did after pro wrestling. Brock in UFC when we come back. Brock in UFC when we come back. It's actually Brock in MMA.
I would say, yeah, we're not talking about Japan.
It's UFC.
That one match.
It was actually in California,
UFC. What's the difference? Oh.
but it was promoted by K1, which is Japanese.
I don't like this theme song actually. I know a lot of people do. I never like this theme.
And yep.
I drink a Coors Light.
What a bitch.
That's one of my favorite moments. We are in the two-shot.
I love the way you
I don't
left
know
it.
why. Maybe
Will.
Why am I next to
Bill Square.
I didn't arrange these seats.
Yeah, clearly not.
Actually, it's more like Wolverine.
Good.
Put your things in.
All right.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Find out more about Wrestling Roundtable on WrestlingRoundtable.com. Lots of content for you there. All the links to the show, bios, columns. You can find out more about Pro Wrestling Respect. Go to WrestlingRoundtable.com. Now, we move on to mixed martial arts. He had one fight outside of UFC, Brock Lesnar did, but then he got signed. He fought once in K1, at least in a K1 promoted event here in America, and then he got shoved. He got thrown right to the wolves immediately against Frank Mir. And 2 fights later, he's UFC champion against returning Randy Couture. He actually held the title, maybe surprisingly to some, for a little bit. He became a 2-time unified champion, unified 2 interim titles. But then we saw diverticulitis take over, and he was really starting to disappear because of that disease in his intestines. We only saw him fight a couple more times after that. He went through 2 very harrowing bouts. He had a part of his colon removed before his last fight. And he said he was in great shape, but obviously he wasn't in it anymore as far as his heart or spirit or whatever you want to say. Because he said, I have the best camp of my life going into the Overeem fight in December, but then he loses and says, I'm retiring. And if I didn't lose this fight, I was going to fight once more for the title and then retire. So it seemed like he was on his way out anyway, and we don't know what his future is going to be. But looking back on Brock Lesnar's mixed martial arts, again, it feels like, much like we said about his pro wrestling career, if only it went a little longer. Because there were even opponents like Mir or other rivals who, Overeem, who said it's a shame that he's retired because we felt a lot more we could see. And I know,
I was about to say the same thing.
of course, yes, we know that. But just as a fan, the idea that we're never going to have that excitement of knowing Brock's going to fight again, it sucks. And let's go back to the beginning, though, when he first came into UFC. On this show, several years ago already, I made the observation that Dana White always says we're trying to get credibility, we're trying to get respectability as a sport, but then this guy goes 1-1, wins a decision against Heath Herring and gets a title shot. I was second guessing that one. So do you think that Brock deserved the shot, or is it, looking back in retrospect, he earned his keep?
He didn't deserve it, but yes, he did earn it because he did win.
Right.
I remember at the time, Dana White's justification was that he said he put the fights that people wanted to see.
Yes.
And let's face it, we all love watching Brock Lesnar fight, and him fighting for the title, especially 3 months after he kicked the shit out of Heath Herring, was like, oh crap, I gotta make sure I watch that fight. And of course, we all bought it, and we all watched it, and we all loved it.
Right. I mean, and I made this point big time that Lesnar got me really hooked into watching UFC.
You and lots of other wrestling fans.
Lots of other wrestling fans, because we wanted to see is pro wrestling. It's all predetermined, but we're athletic, and now you get to see this guy in athletic.
It's the
form.
same idea. Two guys wrestle for a belt, except it's for real.
Exactly, except it's for real. And now you see how Brock Lesnar, what he could really do. He could really kill somebody with those hands. I remember the first time Joe Rogan saying we had to get special gloves because we could not put the regular gloves on him. So that just shows you right there. They had to do some special treatment. He's the biggest heavyweight, and when he's covering a guy, you can't even see the other guy underneath him.
Brock Lesnar earned his stay.
Yes.
First, because that first match with
Was
Frank
that proved
Mir,
over time, though?
Yes, I think so. Because if you look at that first match he had with Frank Mir, he was dominating the match.
Right.
The only reason he lost was a rookie mistake. You know,
I think he lost it because of fucking Steve Mazzagatti. No warning for those shots in the back of the head.
No, I think it was a rookie mistake, and that he totally dominated
Yes,
Heath Herring. And if
right.
you look at the UFC heavyweight division at the time, it was horrible.
That's why I was
There
going to ask
nobody in
next,
there.
because you mentioned the size, and that was a big factor against Randy Couture. Couture is a guy we knew could hold his own against Tim Sylvia, who he took the title from. Gabriel, well, I know, but the point being that this was a huge guy, and this is a guy who's also fighting at light heavyweight, which he went back to after he lost to Lesnar. He also held his own against Gabriel Gonzaga, and as much as the detractors, because you know there was a lot of backlash from the MMA diehards against Brock Lesnar, and they're saying he took advantage of an old, undersized fighter who's not an Olympic alternate or anything like that. But I think Brock did show his worth in time. He may not have deserved it at the time, but that's the key thing here, the time. You mentioned the heavyweight division, and do you think Brock just got lucky with the timing? The heavyweight division was kind of in shambles. Couture had the lawsuit. Nogueira was interim champion, and there were so many times he was supposed to fight somebody, Mark Coleman, Czech Congo, and they got hurt, and things were shuffled around, and it's not quite the division it is now. So do you think Brock got lucky just with the circumstances of the time?
Yeah, because I don't think he could do it today. There's too much talent at the top.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he was well around enough to survive now.
Yeah, I would go with that too. I think that he walked into a division that was struggling to have some kind of fame or notoriety, and finally this guy comes in this division and creams everybody. I think that pops out at you and says, I got to pay attention to this division now, because the heavyweight division wasn't really being paid attention. Everyone's looking at all the lightweight and those fights more so.
Well, the heavyweight division now is so stacked.
Right.
Like you're saying, I don't think Brock could recreate that success now with the talent that's there. And do you think that he made himself too one-dimensional? It was seemingly one strategy used every fight, ground and pound, use his size. Do you think that came back to haunt him eventually?
Yes, it did, and staying with his camp hurt him because in order
It's
to
a little
be
camp
great,
in Minnesota that's pretty to themselves.
It's his backyard.
But in order to be a great, well-rounded mixed martial artist, you have to go out. You have to find the best Brazilian jiu-jitsus, the best wrestlers, the best boxers. And I don't think he was doing that. I think that he was just doing what he felt comfortable doing.
In his comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And if he would have gone out of his way to train with the best in the world, who knows where Brock Lesnar would be right now.
And on top of it, they had to get him on an Ultimate Fighter show. That was a pain in the butt because he's so private of a guy.
Yeah.
Plus his disease, too.
The disease, too. I mean, he's a very private kind of guy and kind of likes to do things his way and not really look at other options like
Throwing
that.
this out there to you because there was some talk about it and whether he deserves it or not. UFC Hall of Fame worthy?
Yes.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yes. Just looking at the fans that he brought in alone.
And just the fans, the money, the name, the UFC was on his
He was
head.
instrumental in growing the sport.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Well, what was your favorite fight that Brock had?
Beating Shane Carwin, UFC 116.
I think that was the most satisfying win.
Because he was just getting his ass handed to him. And I actually going into the fight, I thought Shane Carwin was going to win. I really did. And after the first round, I'm thinking, oh, man.
If they had stopped it in that first round, I don't think anybody would have been surprised.
No, but he was still moving. He was defending himself. He was
Absorbing a lot of shots.
He was absorbing a lot of shots, but he was moving. He was deflecting. He even kicked him off him at one point.
Right.
So by beating him in the second round, especially by submission,
Which you wouldn't have
you
expected.
were like, get the fuck out of here. I never would believe that.
Mir 2 is one of my favorites because it's the revenge factor. And Mir, I think he's still in his prime at that point back then because he's one of the known heavyweight fighters in the world, former champion. And he beat the former champion after that loss that he had. So to me, that was like a satisfactory for all the Lesnar fans. And I think that it proved that he could have beaten the first time and he beat him the second time.
Too bad we won't get a rubber match.
I love that promo.
I don't think you need a rubber match because it shows that he was beating him on the first fight and he beat him on the second fight.
But there would have been intrigue for it.
Right,
Frank Mir only
of
won
course.
8 seconds in the entire 2 fights.
Right.
But the promo after the second Frank Mir fight was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
He even talked about having to have sex with his wife, Sable, after the fact. That was, come on, man.
I
loved it.
I got to go with Brock and Shane Carwin just because all of my friends are pure MMA fans, so they were going for Shane Carwin.
They hate the fake shit.
Oh, man, the first round, they were giving me so much shit, like, oh, Brock's going to lose. And then once Brock put him in that, what was it, a triangle? No.
It was a head and arm triangle.
Yeah, head and arm triangle. Oh, man, I got to laugh in their faces.
And those were some of the best moments, really. And it really sucks, like I said, knowing that he's not going to fight again and we don't have that excitement looking forward to a Brock fight. But one of my favorite matches and moments, especially because I was there, I had to be there for UFC 100, was the victory over Mir. Because he justified himself that he could have gotten that win that first time, if not for some circumstances. Rookie mistake is one of them, sure. But I think it was also important, along with GSP, the other big draw in UFC, for him to be the face of UFC at UFC 100. That was very important. They did a huge buy rate for that, got a lot of attention for it, and Brock was the guy. It may not have been quite as satisfying from a technical sense like the Carwin fight, so we saw there was some versatility there, but that was such a big moment, like their WrestleMania 20.
Well, actually, it was great because the first fight, he screwed up by like just trying too hard. And the second fight, he took his time, even got like the underhook and just, pounded the shit out of him. And he took his time, was smart about it, and it was a much better victory than all these other victories, probably.
Well, that was our talk on mixed martial arts and pro wrestling. Next time, we're going to talk about straight pro wrestling, the best and worst promos, and looking back at the career of Stone Cold Steve Austin. So for the panel of Orlando O'Neill, Will Brooks, Will Vafides, I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. Thank you, and join us next week.